Afternoon. Mark Noble just said he's never looked forward to a game as much in his life. Is it the same for you?
Yeah, I think that I've had a lot of games under my belt, but this one becomes right up there with so many others. But this at the moment is the most important one. It's the next one.
Doug, yeah. Who's next? First of all, can I ask for team news?
We've got most people who was available at the weekend available again, and we've got some people making good recoveries, but we don't know if they're going to be ready yet.
Good enough recoveries maybe to be ready?
No, I'm not sure, no.
Okay. You go into this game, we saw last night with Man City when they won 4-3. Have you got an idea in your mind what you want out of the game?
Yeah, I want a good performance first of all. I need a good result from it if I can get it as well. But it's a two-legged game once again. But I was talking a bit earlier about the quarter-final games were interesting, where our game was 1 each against Lyon. Frankfurt were 1 each against Barcelona. There was the only game what was opened up was the Rangers game, which was 1-0 to Braga, who Rangers went on to win and qualify. It seemed to be the second games which were different. That's not to say that will happen in the semi-finals. It could change, which we saw last night in a strange way. A lot of the games in the first game last night looked as if Man City were going to go well in front, but the game tightened up again. So you never know in Europe. The games are tight, and they have been so far. So we probably expect much the same tomorrow night.
And finally, from me, sort of a two-pronged question. One, how much do nerves kick in now that the prize is within sight in terms of a place in the final is just this tie away? And secondly, you've beaten some big teams this season. You're one of only two teams, for example, to have beaten Liverpool. Do you take sort of, thoughts about that and how you managed to do that into games like this, thinking if we've beaten one of the best teams in Europe and the world on our own patch, this is a similar way of doing it?
I think in the main our home form this year's been pretty good. We've had some good results. I think the nervous side of it, I think, is really important. I think it's good to be nervous. I think it makes you realise the level of the game. But you want the players to play with confidence, and you want them to do a lot of things naturally in the game. But I think nerves are really important for the players to understand the level we're at. And look, it's a great game. We're hugely excited by it. The thrill of being in Europe last year was great, qualifying. If you had said to us at the end of May last year you're going to be in the semi-final of the Europa League with a chance of getting to the final, I think we'd have all said, you're joking. So let's be fair, we're in a really good place. And I think we're worthy of it. I think, like beating Liverpool at home, like beating Tottenham, like beating Chelsea at home, shows that certainly in our home patch on our day we could be a good match for just about any team.
David, Jamie Rees from the BBC. Just a quick one on what you've achieved in your second spell with the club. I mean, just talk us through, when you first walked back through the doors, did you think you'll go on to achieve what you have and be in this situation?
Honestly, I did. I honestly thought that if I could get it going, I'd get a team challenging around the top of the league. That's what I planned. I think for most of my career I've sort of been closer to that than the bottom, even though I've had to come back here a couple of times and take over a team near the bottom. I always felt that if I could get a chance to get it done. But on that journey you need to make sure that your recruitment's good. You sign a few players. We signed a couple of Czech boys on the journey who've been brilliant for us. We took Jared Bowen from the Championship, who's gone on to do great things. Sometimes you need bits of that for all those things to happen. Is it luck? Is it by plan or design? I hope it's a bit of both. Sometimes it doesn't always go right when you're a manager. For the majority of managers, it's very difficult for things to go right. But I always felt that if I could get it going here, I did think that I could get a team challenging. I think now we're challenging. We challenged last year. We're still challenging this year. I think the job to keep it going is the hardest bit. How do you maintain that? How do you go again? And so often you hear the really top players who've been fortunate enough to win trophies or league titles turn around and say, well, we've won that one, it's gone now, we need to think about winning the next one. So rather than dwelling too much on the one they've won. So I've got a wee bit of that. We can't dwell on how well we done last year. We've got to try and do it again, and hopefully we finish well this year, and we'll not be dwelling on that. We'll need to move on and see how we can continue to build and keep growing West Ham.
It's been some journey. I remember when you started out at Preston with Gary Peters. I mean, it's been one of those sort of times that you must really look forward to matches like this, because it's been the culmination of plenty of hard work, I would guess.
Yeah. I don't think you get the longevity in football nowadays if you don't put the hard work in and the hours, and that's what comes from it. And what you hope somewhere is that you get a few cup finals, you win a few trophies along the way. But there's lots and lots of managers who do it and don't. And I've still got a long way to go. I've got to win a 2-legged semi-final. And then I would need to, if I was good enough to do that, then I would need to try and win a final. So from my point of view, there's still a long way to go. But I think to bring West Ham from where it's been to where we are today is huge. And it's a huge thing for the club. And you know, the people who follow West Ham and know West Ham far better than I do, you know, they'll be the ones who'll tell you, you know, this is, you know, get to a semi-final of a European competition and giving myself a real chance of getting to a final is something really special. It's not easy to do.
And just finally, you said that you've given yourselves a real chance. Can you go on and do it? Is there genuine belief?
I think so, yeah. I think when the tournament started, people were asking me about, do you think you can, you know, you're one of the favourites in the tournament? And I was saying, no, what a load of rubbish. Because all the Champions League teams were to drop in. So we done a really good job in the group. You know, the whole squad done a brilliant job in getting us through the group and winning the group. And then we've had two huge ties, which all the teams are going to have. So we're now in a position where we're saying it's semi-final. You know, I think you would always like the second leg probably at home, but we're at home and we have to deal with that, and then deal with a second leg away from home as well. But I think we're in a good place, and I think we have to try and challenge to get to the final. Thank you.
Jack. Afternoon, David.
Hi, Jack.
We've spoken all the way through this about how West Ham are sort of novices at this level, this group that you've got in European football, but you've been there and seen it up to now. A European semi-final is something new for you as well. Again, a bit more reflective. Is this a moment for you to sort of look back on? You know, we've spoken about United so many times and you having something to prove. This must be quite a nice moment for you to look back at United, Sociedad, Sunderland, and where you are now.
I look back and I think, but I felt as if I could make this level and I could be there. I always wanted to be challenging around I wanted to be competing against the elite managers, whether it be in the Premier League or whether it be in Europe. I always wanted to put myself in that position. But to be able to do that, you have to have a team who's capable of doing that or challenging to do that. We're really fortunate we've got a good team here. The team's given me a real chance, and it's given me, like all managers need the players to come and build and get better, and the players here have got better. The players have got better, and from you think of where they were 2 years ago, and even our style and where we played and how we played and the development, and there's so many of the players individually improved greatly. And the bit I added on earlier, Jack, was to say, you know, but we brought in a couple of boys like the Czech boys and Jared and one or two others, but mainly nearly all the players who've been here have improved individually. They've all got better, or they wouldn't be playing, you know, in the top 6 in the Premier League, and they wouldn't be playing in this level of European football. And the big thing is, I think they're all having it, they're all wanting it, they're all seeing this as a great moment for them. And for me personally, it's a great moment to lead a team into the semi-final. But you know, semi-final sounds good, but the final sounds even better.
And just back on the players that might be recovering and you've got a decision to make, is it the size of game where it's quite hard not to rush them back and maybe pick them?
I wouldn't rush MD back. We could do with some central defenders getting fit, that's for sure. But unfortunately, that's the way it's been, and we have to live with it. But we're needing all hands on deck, if you know what I mean. And really, we're getting to the business end, and you really could do with your best players. You can see what happens at this time of the year if you've got your strong team. We're seeing a little bit with how well Liverpool are doing, and even Manchester City, maybe having one or two players out and a little bit short can somehow just affect exactly what you do. But we certainly could do with some players back. We've been quite short but I have to say it's great credit for the group of players with how they've done and to get to this stage.
Gary?
Hi, David.
Hi, Gary.
Just two, David. Before the previous two ties, you were probably seen as perhaps Leon and Seville probably seen as the favourites to a person on the street. Is your messaging now changed perhaps for this tie because there will be fans who would think you're the favourites for this tie?
I don't think we really considered anything what we said, whether we were favourites or whether we're not. I think when we looked at the opposition, it'd be very hard to say that we would beat Seville. I think folk would have said Seville would probably, arguably because of their record, probably the strongest team. Lyon became a difficult game, a really difficult game, and against a good team. I think Frankfurt's very much the same. I think Eintracht Frankfurt I've got a lot of similarities to us. I think they're very intense in their game. I think they're very high as far as running goes. They've got one or two real individual players who can make a difference to their side itself. We'll have an incredible atmosphere in Frankfurt because I've been there a few times to watch games over the years, so I know how difficult that'll be. But we have to use it to our advantage. We need to use the London Stadium. We need to every opportunity we can to try and win this game and be in front if we can get into the second game. But overall, I don't know if you'd necessarily put us as favourites, but if we are, then we didn't think about being underdogs the last time, and we certainly wouldn't think of being favourites if this was the case.
I just wonder that people are talking about the final, talking about the Champions League. Do you mind the idea that people are almost getting not carried away with themselves? Is that something you'd want your players to think about the prize, or would you rather them actually rein it in and just deal with what's in front of them?
Well, it would be ridiculous to think about the prize, wouldn't it? Because you've got too many games to play. Never mind that, we've got Premier League games in between to play before we'd even, if you were good enough ever to get to a final. So to consider that, oh yeah, that's the way to the Champions League, I think it's an incredibly difficult route to the Champions League. I think it was last year, Villarreal and Man United, wasn't it, in the final, and was it 10-9 in penalties or 11-10 in penalties in the end? So you just never know in the competition. Man United were probably big favourites, and so we want to try and be there, but we'd certainly not take any of it for granted. We're going to have to work really hard, and we're going to have to play very well to do so as well.
Tony?
Hi, David.
Hi, Tony.
I just wondered how much you've seen and enjoyed the belief in your players growing, because when you started this campaign, for a lot of them it's quite new, a European campaign, and as you've beaten all these teams and you've got so far, it must have been great to see the belief in them grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think probably, if we go back, probably winning in Zagreb, and I know it was the first game and easy to say, but Dinamo Zagreb would probably be on paper be the toughest away game in the group we had. And I have to say we went there and played really well. We took a lot of supporters out to Zagreb, first game in Europe, and I think that gave us a lot of confidence. And also at that time we had made a choice to sort of split the team a little bit and try and rest some players for games, etc. And I think that working as well helped the morale, made sure that everybody knew they were part of it. Everybody was going to play their part somewhere in the games during the season. So I think that gave us a bit of experience. And then you have to remember we had Declan, who was just back from a European final. We had Thomas Souček and Vladimir, who had just come back from playing in the Euros as well. Suddenly we had started to have a group of players, of sort of international players as well, who had more experience than maybe some other players who maybe hadn't been at that level yet.
Back, I think.
Good afternoon, Joscha Bartlitz from German Public TV ARD. I would like to ask you how big your respect of Eintracht Frankfurt is after they beat FC Barcelona in Barcelona, and also about their fans, because that is really special. We had 30,000 fans in Barcelona and I think about 5,000 here, which is quite special. And even if the clubs are a bit similar regarding their spirit, because this Europe League is so special for these two teams, that makes a difference to other teams.
I agree. I think it's really special that two teams with a history, but maybe not a recent history, especially in Europe, are back together. And I know that we had some of the people from some of the ex-players in the 76 final here the other day, but I think for Eintracht Frankfurt, who I would consider a big name in German football, and incredible support. And when I heard they took 30,000 to Barcelona, I thought, wow. But I've been to a couple of games at Frankfurt before, and I've always found that they had a really big support. But West Ham, we've now got a really good stadium. We've got a fantastic crowd, and I'm really hoping that we can show exactly what we've got as well in that aspect. So, good game. Looking forward to it, and we understand that. We give Eintracht Frankfurt big respect. To beat Barcelona over 2 games was an incredible achievement, especially the first one when you draw and you think that might be quite difficult going to the Nou Camp now. They've done a great job, and it shows you their qualities, and I think they've got quite a lot of similarities to us in many ways, so it'll be an interesting game.
Sam at the back.
Hi David, you mentioned the
Hi, Sam.
You mentioned the fans there in the stadium. Just how powerful has that been this season, and how rewarding is it for you to see that transformation over the last few years?
Huge. I think when you become a manager, one of the biggest things is you want to make sure that you think the supporters are getting a decent level of football. You're hoping that they're getting a bit of success. You're hoping that you can give them something back. I think all those things this year I'd hope the supporters would probably turn around and say yes to. But I think on top of that, from our point of view, I think there's been a much more togetherness amongst the club, the supporters, the players. I think you can see that growing. I'd hope it wasn't always just down to success in football. I'd hope that there's really, really loyal football supporters, whatever club you've got, whether you win, lose or draw, you'd feel the same. But I think there's been a much better togetherness throughout the club, and if we can get the London Stadium the way it was the night of Seville, it'll take some doing.
David, I think you were asked this question in Lyon, savouring the moment as a manager. I think your response was you don't really get a chance to do it because there's so many games. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was nice after the game, you walked to the away fans and we were all singing your name. Personally, for you as a manager, do you plan on doing that a lot more now, savouring the moments?
I'm going to try, but even one of the questions earlier made me think, the game's on you so quick. We've just finished a big game. We've got another game in 3 days' time. I think really to embrace it in football now is very hard, because we'd love to have said after coming away from the Lyon result, let's sort of bask in that glory for a few weeks or a few months if it was possible, but we can't. We've got to quickly get on to the next game, and a bit like the Premier League, you don't have any real time. But I'm guessing this is what it's like if you're going to be a regular competitor, a regular winner, or a challenger. You have to get used to doing that. So I don't think I've really had loads of time to sit back and say, hey, come on, let's go and have a couple of glasses of wine. This has been a great night. I probably have. But the truth is, you don't really get a chance to turn off because the job is all consuming, and how quickly the next games are on. I think now, seeing this much more, the amount of games that the teams have to play is really, really, really tough. And it has been for us, but I wouldn't really want it any other way, and I don't feel the players want it any other way. They're right on it at the moment and feeling very good, so we have to try and take that into the game.
I'm also keen to get your thoughts on your backroom staff, because they've also played an important role in this journey as well.
Yeah.
How do they get the best out of you as a manager and also challenge you as well?
Well, I think they would probably say they're kept on their toes. They think they're lucky if they get home about 6:30 at night from here, from 8 o'clock in the morning. They think they're really lucky. They're in here all day with me, but I've always said if the staff want to come and work for me, then they need to know that how hard they have to work and what I expect, and we try to work really hard on doing the best we can for the players, doing the best we can to make sure that we're as planned and organised as we can be. But they've all brought different things to me. Stuart Pearce, Paul Nevin, Billy, Kevin, Xavi, they've all been really good. I've really enjoyed them. They might not say the same about me, but I've got to say, in their own way, they've been really important. And like Paul and Kevin have done a lot to do with set pieces through the last couple of years, and they help us there. And Pearce is really good at sort of sensing how they're feeling, the mood, where to be. He's a good communicator. And Billy's somebody who has worked with for such a long time. He'll know exactly how I am and what sessions I want and how I want things done. So there's a lot of bits of the group I've got add to it. And I have to say, Xavi was already here, And I have to say, Xavi's been great with the goalkeepers. He really has been, and he's someone else who's got a lot of experience from different clubs and different managers.
The last question for me, David, just regarding team news. How is Angelo Gbona? How's he getting on with his recovery? And do you think he could be back before the season ends?
Angelo Gbonna's back. He only came back this week. As far as when I say back in the building. So I would be amazed if Angelo played before the end of the season. Kurt's back doing some light work. He's ahead of schedule, which is really good. And Issa is actually doing quite well as well. We just feel a little bit better than we first hoped. So there's a bit of positivity around all those players, and because of that, it's given us a wee bit of perk up that maybe they're not quite as long as we thought they might be.
I've got another follow-up now. With Issa being slightly ahead of schedule, is the slight temptation to rush him back, or because of the magnitude of the game tomorrow?
I never rush players back. I don't. I think it's always better to make sure they're right, and I don't rush players back. So we would only put players out if we thought that they were trained and sort of been ready, and we thought fit and ready to play. Cheers.
David, you just mentioned that some of those players from '76 were here this week. I wondered what sort of stories were shared, and actually whether them being here sort of just reinforces the enormity of the next few weeks, and what sort of messages they had for you.
Well, I think that when I was asking them about the game, they talked about the game at home at Upton Park, the second game. And he actually said I think it was Mervyn Day said to me, he says he walked out and the pitch was flooded. He says one of the goal mouths was flooded at Upton Park. When nowadays, it necessarily wouldn't be the case. And I think one of them said that they thought Upton Park was full 3 hours before the kick-off. They were saying they could not get anywhere in. It was jammed. But I think the biggest thing they said that Trevor Brooken made all the difference. I think he scored 2 goals that night, they said, and they said he was fantastic, Trevor. So they were telling me some stories like that, and I'd asked them about going to Frankfurt and how they had done and different things. So, yeah, it was good to speak to them, and and I think they were pleased to be in as well, because I think it's something going forward I'd really like to do at West Ham is get all the ex-players back in more regular, make them feel as if they're welcome. As you well know, we don't have the biggest facilities here, but I think going forward in the future, I think I'd like to be able to ask all the ex-players at different times to come in and watch a bit of training or come and get a bit of lunch. And again, I want to try and keep building the club and making the club more together from the sort of the bottom right to the top.
One more, David. I spoke to Steve Cooper last night, who was waxing lyrical about how much time you gave him when he was up and coming as a manager. And obviously you've had 1,000 games, and I just wondered if getting through this time, getting to a European final, you'd see that as being a crowning glory in your career so far?
Certainly would, yeah. I think it's easy to say that. But I also think that I've always thought that the good times are still to come, and I still think that I'm still growing in experience and getting better, I hope, with my work, trying to deal with it. Whether it be, you talked about learning how to win, at this level, and how to celebrate, or how the amount of games, how you can do that. So for me, I'm still learning all the time, and I'm realising if you're very fortunate to be managing a team which is winning all the time, boy oh boy, you've got some amount of games, and you need to be thinking how you change your players around if you've got a big enough squad, and all those things come into it. But I'm only saying this because the question I'm keeping talking on here says, there is a difference. There's a great deal of pressure at the bottom of the league, and it's always the worst, because you're about to, maybe you could get relegated, and I think that's really hard to take. But for the managers who have to win, and they're asked to win regular, that comes with a big pressure as well. That you're expected to turn up and win. Teams are making it hard for you to score, and you're expected to find a way of doing it. So at both levels of management, there's equally different pressures, but as everybody will know, the top one's always a bit better than the bottom one, that's for sure.